Lots of energy, right? Welcome back. Good evening to one and all present here. I take this immense pleasure to welcome you all to the TechDit's first ever International Research Consortium, an extravagant event with illuminating panel discussions, enlightening and knowledgeable speeches from various respected speakers from across the globe, and of course, an ocean of opportunities for you in form of networking sessions, ideathon competitions, and research expo, world's first research expo. TechDit, a student-based research initiative created with a vision that many believe cannot be a possibility. We strive to deal with the real-world problems and find solutions that has never been improvised using the help of technology, human expertise, and a pinch and a touch of empathy. TechDit delivers you the solution, innovations, and hope for a better tomorrow. TechDit, along with its collaborators, ACM LNM IIT Jaipur, Heartfulness Organization, BMSCE College of Engineering, eSail IIT Mandi, IEEE BMSCE, CodeChef, Microsoft Innovations Club, Music Club, Dance Club, Dramatics Club, VIT Chennai, Skillenta, Ojasvi, LPU, and Affinity Branding, along with our amazing sponsors, Verivo Motors and EduCheck, brings to you an extraordinary platform where discussions ranging from AI to mythologies will be incorporated among the youth and raise competent minds for the betterment of the future of our nation. Now, without any further ado, let us get to the moment. I'm sure you all have been waiting for this particular part of the session from so long. We have some extremely important dignitaries addressing us all in this particular panel discussion on the agenda for a progressive nation. Should research drive change or should change drive the research? I will again repeat, the agenda for today's panel discussion will be for a progressive nation. Should research drive the change or should change drive the research? And I would like to give you a brief introduction about them before I open the floor for them to jump in. I will firstly introduce Dr. K. Balachandran, working as professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Christ deemed to be University, Bangalore, has done his PhD in the Information and Communication Engineering in Anna University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. He has done his post-graduation in molecular physics and computer applications and information technology. His research includes developing an adaptive weight-based ensemble model for lung cancer pre-diagnosis. His research interests include artificial intelligence, data science, and computer networks. Out of his total experience of 38 long years, he worked as scientific officer in Atomic Energy Department in Research and Development Center, catering to assay and analysis of geophysical data, exploration of radioactive minerals for 20 years. In Tata Tea Plantation as a field officer for 1 year and rest of the period in Christ University. He is guiding research scholars in area of data science, image processing, and software engineering. We are thrilled to have you, Dr. Balachandran. Please take a minute and please share your views on this particular section.
Yes, thank you very much, Saharsh, for introducing me. So thank you very much. And you set the tone for the topic. Basically, the tongue twister. As you are about to tell about the topic also, we struggle to tell the topic because that's a kind of a topic. Both the topic as well as the content are sometimes it's a tongue twisting. So the first aspect is a progressive nation. Okay, that's of course it may be valid for any other nation also. Research drives the changes, or should the change drive the research? That was a motive. I am actually looking into a perspective of a data science. For me, the research drive changes is the equivalent of an unsupervised learning kind of an environment wherein we are not sure about the goal, we are not sure about the outcome, but progressively we are thinking of improving ourselves from the current state. So that's the main motto of the research drive the changes. It basically comes because of the individual passion and the individual progressive outlook, and also the interest that one has got in that particular area. So it's a continuous optimization process. Whereas when I go for the other extreme, should change drive the research, I look into me as a scientific, as data science parlance, as a supervised learning. We wanted to get a solution at a definite point of time in a definite way. The solution may be heuristic in nature. It may not have an optimal solution, but we have to produce a solution. Typical example could be a COVID pandemic, which forced us to find a solution for the vaccine in a short period of time. We don't know whether the solution what we got is an optimal, but we got a solution. So it may be a heuristic in nature, and it may not be, it may be a goal-oriented approach. So with this brief introduction, I pass on that chance to the others to elaborate on this particular topic before we take up further discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Balachandran K. It was an amazing introduction and a very crisp insight on how you look forward to this panel discussion to set a tone. Now, I will introduce another amazing panelist with us, Mr. Rajashekhar M.S. He is a product development and management expert. He's a qualified professional with an extensive background in managing and delivering cross-functional product development, program management, and digital transformation projects in IT industry. He completed his MS and software systems at the Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences. A major part of his 34 plus years of experience has been at various organizations where he acquired expertise in handling a gamut of activities spanning across strategic planning, delivery management, software development, artificial intelligence, and also worked together driving the critical responsibilities of managing and the biggest development group. Mr. Rajashekhar, we would love to hear your views on how you take this particular forum up.
Thank you very much for that brief and a good introduction. First of all, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be amongst you this evening. I know that this gathering is an August gathering with a lot of eminent research people from academia and industry, and I know you are all into deep research activities. Whereas I am not, and I was not really into any deep research, but definitely I have my perspective to share from an industry, views to share from an industry perspective. Coming to the topic, I think it is a good statement which depicts the chicken and egg problem. So if I were to read the entire debate topic, I think it says that for a progressive nation should research drive change or change drive research. I think the key word there is progressive nation, as Dr. Balachandran also was emphasizing. So I would say in a very short and a crisp manner, for a progressive nation, it's extremely important that both research driving the change as well as drive changing the research. I will elaborate on it when I come to next part of the discussion. I have a couple of examples from my own industry experience as well. So it all depends upon the goal and the vision. I think for a progressive nation, what is important is the goal and to achieve the goal and the vision. So depending upon the circumstance, sometimes research should drive the change and sometimes change should drive the research. And I'll just stop at this moment because I think we are going to go into the deep discussions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rajashekhar. Now I will be introducing an amazing person who is representing the complete and entire student fraternity in this particular panel discussion. Mr. Joseph H.R. Isaac is a data scientist at Ericsson R&D who specializes in natural language processing, machine learning, computer vision, healthcare, and virtual reality. Aren't they amazing topics? He completed his MS in IIT Madras and is also about to complete his interdisciplinary PhD degree in IIT Madras. He has authored 7 journals and 4 conferences articles in reputed venues, and publishers include Taylor and Francis, Springer, and Frontiers. Dr. Joseph H.R. Isaac, please walk through us on your opinions.
So thank you very much, and I'd like to thank everyone else for also giving me this opportunity. And so as they introduced, I'm Joseph Isaac. And to give a crisp overview on the particular topic, to give justice to the previous two speakers as well, yes, does change drive research, or does the research drive change? I would like to briefly tell about my aspect on how I'm looking at it. I'm seeing it in a kind of a chapter-wise fashion, where in one particular chapter of life, there's a particular change which is driving research. Then there'll be another course where that research will be driving change, and this interchangeable fashion is how it's going through, at least according to my perspective. I do have a lot of examples, and I want to talk about that. So I'm looking forward to the discussion with the other panel members as well. And yeah, I would like to give a chance for other panel members to give their introduction, and looking forward for the detailed discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. Now, I will invite Namrata M, who will be the moderator for today's panel discussion. Namrata M is working as an assistant professor. She is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, BMS College of Engineering from 2010. She is currently pursuing PhD in the area of blockchain at NIT Tiruchirappalli. She received a BE degree in Computer Science and Engineering in 2010 with 5th rank at VTU, an MTech degree in Software Engineering. She is a gold medalist at VTU in 2013. Her current research interests include blockchain, cryptology, image processing. She has published 16 papers in international journals and 9 conference papers in her domain. She has been invited as a resource person for various workshops and invited talks at reputed colleges. She has served as a reviewer for various international conferences and also journals such as the Springer, JEET, etc. She has taught subjects such as logic design, microprocessors, system software, theoretical foundations of computation, C programming language and C++, analysis and design of algorithms, data structures, advanced data structures, operating systems, programming in Python, probability, statistics and queuing theory, mobile application development, and various other. She is the recipient of the Best Scientist National Award at the 2nd International Conference on ERIR 2020 on 12th December 2020. Now, I will open the floor in front of the moderator and to all the panelists. We are still awaiting for the 2 more panelists to join us. I guess Karthik sir is here with us. So after Namrata ma'am, we will introduce Karthik sir. Ma'am, over to you.
Very good evening, everyone. So it's my pleasure to be part of this panel discussion and to serve as a moderator for this panel discussion. So as rightly everyone mentioned already, this is quite challenging and, possibly a confusing thing, where the topic mentions, does research drive change, or does change drive research? So let me just give you one small quick example. So where since my research interest is on blockchain, so when you start working on any of the problem statement, a real-time problem statement, when you want to implement it, so you want to implement it so that it affects the change and, it helps our nation in some form. So to practically implement it and, put the change for a progressive nation, as it mentions, right? So we require a change as well so that, this can be implemented in life. So I would not specifically fix to one of that. So whether the first part or the second part. So once the debate is over, maybe I'll give my viewpoints on which is more appropriate with an example on blockchain. So Saharsh, if the other panelists are there, you can introduce. Then maybe we'll get started with one of them with the detailed thing.
Sure, ma'am. So we have Dr. Karthik Vasudeva. He is a self-driven research professional with a solid conceptual expertise and experience in developing wireless systems. He has a PhD in electrical engineering, and his research interests include wireless network enhancement schemes. Demonstrated strong expertise in the implementation of wireless systems using USRP based software defined radios. He's an amazing person in his domain and with decades of expertise. Welcome, sir, on board, and please share in a minute your views on this particular domain.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of this industrial panel discussion. So actually, as everyone pointed out, that the change driving the research or research driving the change, like Dr. Balachandran correlated with the neural networks like supervised and unsupervised learning. So, but in a broader picture, I think that it should go from bottom to narrow down approach. So it should that the change should come first. So if we know the outcomes, so we can start with the change and then follow the results, like learn, like basically it's like a learning agent. So we can get insights and then narrow down, get to know the broader research problem. So that in this kind of architecture, I would believe it's faster and also maybe like more efficient in the like progressive nation. So where there are limited resources. So that's what I feel. Yeah, I would proceed. I would like to stop it here and proceed with other industrial panel members.
Thank you, sir. I guess Dr. Nagbhushan sir has not joined us till now. So, ma'am, over to you. Now you may please proceed it ahead. I will request all the panelists at least to switch on their cameras so that we can relate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sahar. So I think we'll get started and maybe at the end, I'll take some time to share my views. So before we get started, right, possibly at the end of each of the session, I would ask each one of the panelists to highlight on whether you go with research will drive the change or will change drive the research, so that, you know, at the end, 5 minutes quickly, we could take our time at the end for 5 minutes and, you know, discuss on how exactly, after all the discussions are done, how exactly is it. So that is one request from my end. So I think we'll get started with Dr. Balachandran.
Yes, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Namrata, for setting the tone for this panel discussion. Yeah. So as actually Mr. Rajshekhar sir has pointed out, we can't say that this is better or that is better, because I think sometimes we may require, for a progressive nation, the research should drive the changes, and sometimes the change drives the research. So it depends upon the situation, depends upon the time, or it depends upon the need that arises at a different point of time. One thing what I look into it, for example, should change the change drives the research. For example, a competitive product has been released by one company. A competitor immediately wants to upbeat that particular product by means of working on and finding out a slightly better. So just to take an example, maybe Apple is releasing a particular phone. Then immediately Samsung thinks, what best way I can try to outbeat the performance by immediately coming out. So again, it has to be a time bomb, and it has to give a solution which should be better than the Apple, but need not be a globally best solution, right? So constantly these people are working with the time-bound pressure and the goal-oriented approach of delivering a particular product at a definite point of time. So that actually should here the should change drives the research here. Whereas when you look into the research drives the change, it's a constant phenomena without any time limit, something which has been progressively improved over a period of time. For example, our travel. Earlier we were walking. and we were comfortable with the walking. Then we started observing how some animals are moving faster than us, maybe a cheetah, maybe a horse. Then we tried to find out, is it possible for me to adapt a system where I can also move like a horse or a cheetah? So people that started taming the horses and they start traveling in that one. So that's a one better one. Next is automated solutions, what they were thinking. Maybe a development of the maybe a wheels and subsequently different type of vehicles and so on. It has progressively improved the way in which we were traveling. So sometimes we get the inspiration by looking into the nature itself. As I mentioned to you, by just looking into the horse or cheetah, we started knowing that, okay, we can travel like this. By looking into the way the fish is swimming, we also started learning how to move in the water body. The same way, by looking of the birds, we started developing missions wherein we can travel similar to the birds. So there actually the research drives the changes which need not have a time bomb. So, and it's a progressive nature, and every time we try to get a better solution and based on our own understanding. That comes purely based on our interest, our own self-motivation, and also try to see how to make our life better from what we are doing in the past. So that's what I feel, that the basic difference between the research drives the change and the change drives the research. Yes, over to Namrata madam.
Nagbhushan.
Yes, ma'am. Nagabhushan sir has also joined us. So I will love to invite sir as well. Dr. B.S. Nagabhushana is an experienced professor with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. He is currently working as a professor in BMSCE. He has extraordinary skills in embedded softwares, MATLAB, C, C++, and embedded systems. He is a strong education professional with a PhD focused in electrical sciences from the Indian Institute for this particular panel discussion. And in a minute, sir, if you can please share your views on this particular discussion topic. Nagabhushan, sir, if you can.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible now. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm at the outset, I'm sorry I joined late. At the outset, I just go with both earlier speakers. So it's not categorically sort of research doing the change. It's true 100% of the times, and neither is true that change is going to drive the research, right? I can quickly go through a couple of slides if there is an opportunity. Is that something that I can do? This is to the organizers. Is there a way that I can share a couple of slides?
Sure, sir. You're already the co-host. You have the capability to share your slide. However, sir, I will recommend we can go for that particular section in the another phase of the discussion.
Okay. So if there were to be another session, so where we can get into some details, that's fine with me. So, but at this point in time, I took a sort of very theoretical approach, trying to look at what should drive what. Now, I don't have very many examples like the earlier speakers, panelists spoke. I speak from a totally theoretical perspective, being a teacher, something very sort of comfort zone for me. So if you look at change, what should drive a change? See, rather than looking at in a sort of a limited boundaries, whether change should drive research or research should drive change. So if we were to look at what should drive a change, what should drive research, so then look at what parameters we get, and then say for example, if you land up with X, Y, and Z to drive the change, are these X, Y, Z, and Z corresponds to research? Same exercise you do on the other side. What drives the research? You get some PQR parameters. Are PQR attributable to change? I did this exercise. Maybe if there were to be an opportunity, I'll share a couple of slides at some point in time. So I found neither of them is true. But in conclusion, what I could really think of is a problem that drives the change. It is a necessity that drives the change. And on the other side, research, the way I perceive, research does not need any driver. So, other research drives a couple of things. In my opinion, if I can put in one sentence, research drives technology, technology drives engineering, and it is the engineer who is the recipient of both technology and problem who would provide solutions to change the system. So that is the way, if I can summarize. So this is about the change and research. If you really decipher the topic given, the context of a progressive nation. So we need to really look at large. So far what I said is across change and research, but if you extend it to a progressive nation, so the way I probably would like to give my opinion is that there are two broad categories which we generally think of: developing countries and developed nations, developing countries and developed in the countries, and developing countries. So in the case of developed countries, if you really see, it is all the way down from the problem space of the research. So for various reasons, including the cost factor, the investment factor, and many other things, developing countries are not in a position to do that, right? So they try to get the technology or develop the technology with some support, and from there you try to engineer and bring about a change to make systems better. So in the case of developing countries, it is not the research that is driving the change, it is a technology that is driving the change. But in developed countries, it is a research that drives the change all the way, right? So that is the way I look at it. But in a way, it is a transition. So the developing countries, every developing country would like to become a developed country. So eventually, so the research will drive the change. But research has a separate, context. Research is not going to drive anything. That's what I said. Research is a self-starter by itself. So there is another little bit extra delta for the research. So that is how the research exists. Otherwise, it extends itself, it merges into technology and engineering. So we need to have a separate identity for research where it is not going to be driven by anybody, but it is going to drive the technology and eventually the change and the solution. This is what is my opinion in short. I'm sorry if I have short on time.
That was an amazing view, sir. And over to Namrata ma'am. Ma'am, please take it ahead from here.
Yeah, thank you, Sahar. So now, thank you, Nagbhushan sir, for sharing your views. Now I think we'll quickly move Dr. Rajashekhar MS. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Namrata. I think I'm not Dr. Rajshekhar. By the way, I mentioned in the beginning that I'm not a serious researcher. I'm really from industry background. But I think as Dr. Balchandar, Dr. Nagbhushan, many other speakers put it, the topic given, progressive nation should for a progressive nation, should research drive change or change drive research? In fact, when I was looking at it from a very neutral perspective, because I'm neither a very serious researcher nor a very, what do you call as a change agent, the way I thought is actually, as most of us are concurring, it should be, there is no right or the wrong answer. It should be both. It depends on the situation and what is the goal and the vision. And as a famous saying goes, we all know that necessity is the mother of invention or innovation, or whatever it may be. But there's a slight difference between innovation and research, as I probably understand. Innovation is probably adding new value or value, stream or something like that. Whereas research is focusing on what we might have and adapting it to the situation, or maybe customizing it to the situation. But nevertheless, I think as quoted, there are many examples which illustrate that one is complementary to the other. I would rather tend to use the word complementary rather than drive, because complementary probably rightly reflects how they should go together, just like a push-pull train. If you look at a push-pull train, it has engine at both the ends, and when going in one direction, one engine pulls; when going in the other direction, other engine pulls. This is what if we mean by driving. Then one should drive the other, and as Dr. Nagbhushan very nicely put it, it is a chain. So research driving technology, technology driving engineering, engineering driving development, development driving change. So it's actually a circle which should complete for a progressive nation to benefit from it. So that's the way I think we are all looking at it. Since I started my career from research and development background in Indian Space Research Organization, I would probably take one or two examples from there. So there are many examples in which, especially in the space science, the research drives change and the drive change the research. For example, let us take, India required a very deep technology requirements in the communication and remote sensing and other sophisticated application. So this is basically a need, that the change that a progressive nation is demanding from us. So actually the research now started from the need or from the change or the demand that a progressive nation is making on us. So this led to a lot of research in various areas of space activities, be it electronics, be it mechanical, be it any other field of engineering. It actually took a lot of time and led to a lot of research. And from that research was driven the technology, and technology was driven to development, and development ultimately resulted in what we have achieved today in space science. So this is, whereas this example from one perspective, I can also quote the example from other perspective. For example, earlier you all know that we were developing very bulky satellites. It all used the old, age electronics and mechanical, which are very heavier in weight and things like that. We were not able to put in a lot of payload because of the weight of the subsystems itself. But as the research progressed and a lot of innovations happened, new technologies came in, electrical, electronics, and mechanical systems really done a wonderful research, and they have come out with a lot of systems which are very minute in nature and very embedded. I mean, in the sense of very integrated technologies came in, the weight reduced, the applications increased, and we were able to put in a lot of payload instead of putting the system weight. So here is a classic example where research has led to change. So that has led to change in a sense that a lot more applications came up. Whereas earlier we were just thinking of, probably very low-end communication and low-end, very low resolution remote sensing. Whereas if you look at nowadays, the technology which is prevalent nowadays, because of all this research and technology development which has happened, now we were able to develop the most sophisticated, launch vehicle or satellite technologies. I mean, the applications which are using these technologies. So if you take any such field, you can definitely come up with examples where both the research is driving, the change, and change is developing, or rather driving the research. The latest one, which everybody would know and everybody would probably love to quote, is the COVID. Nobody predicted that we would land up in such a situation, and it is a national, in fact, international requirement that one would go ahead and do research to develop some vaccine or some drug. So here, if you really look at it from a very deep and very deep perspective, nobody was really doing any research to find out a drug or a vaccination for COVID. In fact, people didn't know it. So when the need arises and when the changes happened in the entire world, that drove the entire research, and different countries responded differently. And we all saw how the entire world rose up to the occasion and really developed the vaccine so fast. And we were all, in a way, we were all saved because of this innovation and research. So like this, there could be multiple examples, but I think, and probably, as Dr. Balchandar was quoting, he quoted the example of a wheel, which is very, very native in nature. And similar to that, I would quote another example of fire, for example. In the olden days, probably during the Vedic age or whatever age, when human being invented fire, he was not knowing any applications of fire. He just by accident invented the fire, and that has led to a lot of change in his style of living. He came to know how to cook the food. He later on used fire for many purposes. So we can go into any field and probably can pick up examples which probably gives you a perspective of research driving the change and change driving the research. But as I earlier quoted, in my perspective, it should be complementary to each other and it should be driving each other. And ultimate goal is what is important. If you really look at progressive nation, and Dr. Nagabhushan also was telling, there are different phases of a nation in which one would be driving the other. Ultimately, for a progressive nation to achieve its goal and its vision, I think it is extremely important as technologists, as researchers, and as leaders, we should be having a very balanced view, and we should really be looking at what is that ultimate goal and ultimate vision that we should achieve for our progressive nation, and accordingly give enough trust for both research and change. So this probably is my perspective, and I would love to hear from other panelists as well as many of you. Thank you, Namrata.
Ma'am, you are on mute. You're speaking, but we can't hear you. I guess there is a network glitch from ma'am's end. So maybe let's proceed with Karthik Vasudevan, sir, on his experience from industry. He has been working from many decades in the industry as a system radar engineer. So, sir, what are your opinion, and how do you resonate with Mr. Rajshekhar and Dr. Balachandran?
Yeah, actually, I think that as Joseph said, it should go hand in hand. But I would believe that the chain driving the research would come first, and then the chain synergy between the chain happens, leading to the desired outcome, and also studying the research. I mean, studying the model mainly. So, coming to the progressive nation, whether this model is applicable. So basically, there are many constraints like budget and other constraints. So keeping that in mind, the resources and things. So So I'm just speculating how it would play, it would impact this, like how this model impacts the budget. So that thing, it's like that needs to be studied upon. So yeah, and actually the main thing is the research. So knowledge, it's just a path to the problem. So knowledge, like getting the knowledge, budgeting the research is one thing, but that knowledge is only a path to a solution. So basically, if you narrow down if you go to the basic people, so there ultimately, let's take a business people. So mainly it should be like the solution should be there, but the main research problem they wouldn't care. So the knowledge is just the path, but yeah, so ultimately the end goals should be achieved, right? So yeah, for that, so in that process, if we start from the end goals and then like go top to the research problem, we might get some insights, and then like get to know the whole research problem. And then that as Rajshekhar, Dr. Rajshekhar MS, sorry, Rajshekhar MS mentioned that there might be some accidental inventions happening in that in this chain. So yeah, but another thing would be that many mathematical models which we have studied, it's never been put into applications. So that would be another like that would follow, I think, the research to research driving the change. So like as like when the Srinivasa Ramanujan invented, when he came up with the theories for the black hole, so actually the black hole concept was not there. So there it was there was no the problem at all, but this mathematical problem which he put it into formulas. Now it's been used to the model the black holes and other universal phenomena. So there it would like that is a different kind of what do you call different kind of model. I mean, different kind of change in the model. So yeah, so but keeping going forward and keeping long term perspective for a progressive nation, yeah, I would believe that the change driving the research would come first, and then synergy happens between the research driving chain and change driving research, and it goes on from. Yeah, thank you. I would like to stop here and then like I would love to hear views from other panelists. Hello?
Yeah, you're audible,
Ma'am,
Karthik.
we are not able to hear you. Ma'am, your voice is not audible. Can you please check? Ma'am, it is still not audible, ma'am. Can you please remove the headphones, ma'am, maybe? And meanwhile, I will open the floor for Dr. Joseph Isaac. Sir, please guide us through.
Sure. So it's clear to see experience speaking in here with all of my other panel members here, Sir Bala sir and Rajshekhar sir and Karthik, and of course Naga sir. So with all of them saying, I think they're all taking the points from me, but I'll try to do justice for the student community by giving whatever I could see. And with all of your permission, sirs, I'm going to take points from each of you, and I'm going to be quoting them as well. So if you would mind. So to come to Karthik sir's point, I totally agree on that fact that change is the one. I mean, like we are talking about chicken egg problem, but then it comes to the fact like without a chicken there is no egg. So if the change is what they need for a research to happen, And coming along the lines of the fire and also the wheel from Bala sir, we could look in terms of Edison and the light bulb. So before the light bulb was invented, there was no such light bulb at all. So it was like there was a need for people to see in the dark. They were having candles before that. And there was a need like, okay, candles are something that's just burning out. We need something else. And that kind of change is what is leaded Edison to start developing something totally from scratch, and then found the light bulb. And when he found the light bulb, that caused a sudden stir in the whole community itself that, okay, there's something which emits light. And that light bulb resulted with the tube light and then all kinds of different kinds of light sources because he started that change. So that change driven more of the research. And when that research is going on, it goes like kind of like this hype cycle, you could call it. So there'll be a change. That change makes a big hype. And due to that hype, there'll be a lot of research which goes on according to that trend. And this research, there might be a point where it plateaus, and then it goes towards the next change. I could talk in terms of the kind of projects I've been in during my research, and also since I'm working there, so I'm seeing the kind of projects which are going there. Basically, it's if you're talking in terms of networking, there was 2G, and then when 2G was going on, it was a great hype because people can finally talk on phones. But then the fact that you could watch a video, that stirred up another different hype. That was going with 3G. Then you could now watch videos very well, and that 3G turned to 4G. Each time now, because of 4G, there's a whole point of video conferencing. So the fact that you could easily talk to each other, that trend started a whole different load of different company problems, different projects that many companies are now tackling. And with the new arrival of 5G that's just around the corner, and it's also being used in some countries, that is opening up a whole lot of possibilities because in the research field, I've seen that 5G is now helping healthcare in the sense that you could do virtual surgery using 5G, as in telesurgery, where one person from one country can actually use 5G networks to do operation on another person. This change is now brought a whole new level of research, which is now being researched upon. Basically, now everyone is looking into healthcare, telemarketing, telesurgery, tactile internet, where haptics is now being transferred through the internet. And then this is something that people in 2G spectrum, that era, didn't even think about. So it's like this hype cycle where there's a change, and then there's a research associated to that change, and then there's a new change which is going to come around just the corner. And this kind of stage-wise, that's what I was mentioning. The stage-wise process is happening probably every decade, probably now in the case of every 5 years, because the level that technology has risen, and technology is going to such a fact that I'm sure there is a new change that's going to happen just around the corner, which can stir up the market once again with a lot of different projects and different kind of products all together. So that is what I would like to talk about for now, and over to the next speaker. Thank you. Saharsh, I couldn't hear you. Saharsh, Namrata, you there?
Yes, yes, I'm
Yeah.
here. Namrata ma'am, can you speak now? Ma'am, you're not audible to any one of us. Maybe, ma'am, you can leave and join again. Meanwhile, let's open this particular floor in the second phase, because as of now, each and everyone has shared their particular and very precise opinions on how they take this particular research change altogether and how they function in a parallel way. As Dr. Balachandran and Mr. Rajshekharan mentioned, that it has to be on a perspective basis. It cannot be a diluted basis that, okay, this should happen or this is prior or something like that. So no, ma'am, we cannot hear you. Ma'am, can you please leave and join again? Thank you. So now let's move to the next phase of this particular panel discussion, and let's open a floor for interquestionary answers. So we will start with B.S. Nagabhushan sir, because he wanted to share something in his slides presentation as well. So let's give him that particular opportunity, and then we will open the floor for a cross questioning across the panel, where panel can also interact in a healthy environment. So over to you, Nagabhushan sir.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Just help me. How do I share? Generally, I'm used to this. Google
Yeah, in the
Class.
bottom, you'll see a green button saying share screen. You could click on that.
Oh, okay. It's quite clear. All right. So,
Thank you, sir.
okay. Probably do what? Yeah. Okay. So something visible to all of you?
Yeah, we could see, sir.
Yes.
Visible.
Excellent. So I have not put any sort of very fancy slides out here. So just the thought, just extempore whatever I got, and I put it across and then try to organize it. It's not like a sort of business presentation where things are very good and very jazzy slides. But nevertheless, let's go through that. And thoughts are important, and I'm sure every one of you agree with me. So I'm just extending on what I said earlier. So deciphering the topic itself, we have three things to really ponder: progressive nation, change, and research. So here comes the verb drive, which is trying to some way harness the three keywords in our problem statement or the theme of the panel discussion. The challenge here is to really agree, disagree to whatever extent we agree, whether change is going to drive research or research is going to drive change, and how does it look in the context of a progressive nation. That's what we are trying to do here. Let's look at the second and the third buzzwords, the change and the research. As I said earlier, instead of trying to really look at the twister, research drives the change or the change drives research. So it's like a twister, right? Instead of doing that, let's try to make it a little bit enhanced. Let's look at what drives change. Second, what drives research, right? Why do we have to remap these questions like this? These questions are going to leave us with a more enhanced space, as I said, really work. And then finally, we are not really deviating from the topic. But then what we probably do is that if at all we encounter research as a driver, let's conclude it. Alternatively, let's go with an open mind. So if we encounter change as a driver for research, let's conclude it that way. It's good to really go with an open mind and then consolidate all the information, and then it's a contested or information driven conclusion. So that's what we are going to do probably next couple of minutes. So just trying to close whatever is appearing, blocking the screen anyway. Question one, what drives change? So let's start with what all we know, which possibly drive change. What are the things that are going to drive change? So any one of us can come out with some contribution. That's what we do in the classroom, so typical teacher type of working. So here, probably if it were to be a class, I would have called all students and then whatever is their thinking down and then try to articulate an answer. But let's do a little bit different. So let's go at some of the things that I have listed, right? What drives the change? It's not complete. So there might be differences, there might be shortcomings, there might be additional points which I have missed. Let's look at a couple of them. What drives change? The cost, availability, convenience, ethics, ecological imbalance that probably the present system is creating. The prevailing profitability might be driving the change. Importance. So in a global context, hey, I did first. So that sort of thing might be driving the change. Time might be driving the change. Efficiency of any product, system, process might be driving the change. Right? A little bit elaborating on each one of them just to get an insight of what each one of them, how each one of them are going to be drivers. Cost, again, coming back from top to bottom, cost of raw material, cost involved in the process, human capital. So there may not be available expertise. That may be the thing. Availability, material might be the thing. Skilled labor, know-how. I just would like to tag on to know-how. I will again revisit that a bit later. Convenience. Convenience amounts to some missing requirements. Ethics. So there might be a question of ethics. Should we be doing that in the first place? I always take the example of a laterally different type of industry. Let's say a company manufacturing liquors. Yeah. How is that impacted with in the context of ethics? Let's take a cigarette company. We blatant know that they are all not good for health and people should be doing it, and why this industry itself is existing in the first place, all that will come up. Let's take a more sort of challenging case, the silk industry, where they take the silkworms, boil them, boil the cocoon, and then take silk out of that. So is that an industry which should ethically do? It ethically exist in the first place, right? So a lower side imbalance, ecological imbalancing. So maybe the automotive industry, again the space. So Rajshekhar was making a mention of satellites. So looking at space vehicles, should they be existing? I saw a couple of videos where they say that aircraft is more pollutant even compared to the space vehicle. I don't know. Anyway, so there are all discussion points. Profitability, importance. Again, ISRO is an example at the outset. So where we would like to show the world that I did first. But it's not just that. There's always a business model behind that, which if Government of India wants, they can definitely encash on that. I'm sure they must be on the job. But nevertheless, importance is also driving. Okay, is China doing it, India doing it, US doing it, Europe is doing it, that sort of thing. That is another driver for change. Time. So time calls for change in them. Whether something is not working up the, there we go to very technically, so real-time systems and all that, and efficiency of the system. So these are some of the drivers for the changes. So out of these things, there are few more.
So Naga sir, before we just change the slide, I'd really like to elaborate on this, and thank you very much for the points that you have mentioned.
Okay.
So just a quick point, I really like this slide, by the way. So the quick point is, I like to see all of these points that you mentioned as all, rather than one is at the actual cause, I think it's more of the case like it's more in parallel, where one factor is affecting some other factor. Whereas Dr. Balachandran was also mentioning that it's a kind of an unsupervised method, right? So I really like that quote, where this change is, it's something like there's a research going on, and that research is automatically affecting some other case where something in the cost is affecting something else of importance, and some change in that importance is affecting something else in the convenience. So this kind of interdependent factors, because not all are changing at once, of course, right? So each industry is changing in its own speed. It's having a hype in its own speed. So one change in one industry, like what Balasa was saying, that Samsung is changing, and if Apple changes, Samsung will look at that. It need not even be Apple or Samsung. It could even be the silk industry. It's changing the textile industry as a whole. So if there's some other change in textile industry, then some other industry might get affected. So this kind of interdependent factors all happening in parallel is something that I would like to add in here?
True. This is a very complex situation. I have tried to slim it down to really customize it for the topic, because if you really see the cross-industry impacts, and one should be opposing the other, or they must be coordinating and then working it. There are a number of good examples where industries, unless they cooperate, unless they coordinate, the whole industry is going to suffer. So there are examples of that order. I'm completely with you on that. I've tried to slim it down and then try to look at it in isolation, just only to really meet the topic that we are into. So that is the attempt. So now, in fact, in terms of what this slide is probably I expect it to do is we would like to answer. So is cost, is cost amounting to research, right? Is availability amounting to research? Is it something that research addressing availability? Is something research which addresses convenience, right? Then, if at all, out of about 10 or 12 bullets here, more number of bullets boils down to research, then we should be telling that research is driving the change, right? Which at the outset is not for me. I have another slide where I've duplicated it and with some little bit of coloring and all that. So let's hang on. Then in the meanwhile, let's look at the other buzzword, what drives research, right? So let's start putting what all we know, possibly. What can be research? So when we spoke about change, we straight away come into drivers for research. When it comes to drivers for change, when we talk about research, we cannot do that straight, because notionally it is understood that there are no drivers for research. At least I'll try to elaborate on that if there are going to be any other opinions on that. That is the reason why I've really to find out, what is research, right? So if the above technique is infeasible, that is defining what is a research and what can be a research. So we should look at a broader space. If defining a research probably lands up in a lot of these controversies, so let's try to take some examples here and there and then see what is research, what is not research, right? That gives us a very good footing on conceptualizing what a research is, and which helps us to really take it further, right? So there's something, researcher is someone who conducts research and organized and systematic investigation into something. So that is something which I Googled and then found out I liked it, the systematic investigation into something, right? So that something is not out of casual, it's not a casual word that somebody has. That's how we attribute it. If somebody says, if some student puts it something, or if some engineer puts something, hey, how can it be very casual, be specific? That's what we, here we accept it, because research is, in my opinion, just that, right? So now let's try to find out what is research and what is not research, right? So now I've tried to really sort of consolidate, because it's an endless discussion. I've taken a couple of them which we all have studied. So let's try to look at what a postulate is. Again, a Google definition, and I agreed with that. Suggest or assume the existence, right? A fact or a truth. Suggest or assume an existence. So there is no basis, absolutely no basis. Assume the existence, right? Hypothesis. It differs a little bit from a postulate. It's a supposition or a proposed explanation based on limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. Again, the clarity is at stake, right? So a person who makes hypothesis, so we call him as a think tank. So he doesn't do anything. He need not be an engineer. He can be a philosopher. He can be anything. So such people, we call them as think tanks. They must be isolated separately, which developed countries are doing, both on the corporate side, but also on the academic side. Is where the developing countries are missing out. To give a separate that delta part, whatever has to be given to research, which is missing, and which we categorically try to delineate with what industry wants to do research and drive the change, right? So that is something which, how industry is doing it. Maybe I can quote a couple of organizations, couple of corporates which have done it, including ISRO, for example. I'm very I didn't have an opportunity to work in an organization like ISRO, so I envy people like Rajshekhar. So the way the progress they have made, I'm sure the investment on research is phenomenally big. So the government organizations, let's take a very typical corporate, let's take the case of Bosch, whom I have seen very closely. So their research investment is phenomenally high. Let's take the engine manufacturer Cummins. Their research investment is phenomenally high. So they don't expect anything out of that, right? So which only developed countries can do, as I said. Let's moving further on this. Person who validates hypothesis using quantitative and qualitative techniques. So that's where one of our speakers made a mention. It's modeling and other things. So he is a researcher, right? The person who verifies the validated hypothesis. There's a difference between validation and verification. So software industry people know it well. So that guy becomes an architect. The person who uses the verified hypothesis becomes an engineer. The person who enjoys the outcome of verified hypothesis becomes a consumer. This is the chain which Rajshekhar was pointing out, right? It's a chain. There's no escape out of that. So industry would be doing research, but still we need to encourage things like postulates, hypotheses, right? So still they have to exist. Still we have a lot of problems which are known, like for example, be it quantum computing or even beyond that, neurocomputing and neuromorphic and a number of problems where people have to postulate, people have to do hypothesis, and then let it go, through the entire chain so that it finally addresses the problem on hand, the solution, and bring that change, right? But my opinion at this point is that there is always a delta that we need to be attaching. So how does it affect a corporate, for example? So we are talking in terms of in the context of a corporate. What should a startup be doing? What should a mid-sized corporate be doing? So there has to be no questions asked. There has to be some investment on doing research, right? So of course it has to be. There is a framework, there is a boundary, but the boundary has to be very flimsy. It has to be very broad. No great expectations, no limitations on time. So that is what developed countries are doing, and that's where developing countries are missing out. So let's take example, like Joseph, who mentioned about Edison. So I cannot refrain myself from telling you a story, a small story. I'm sure if every one of us would have read that, the childhood days of Thomas Alva Edison. So when he was turned down from the school and sent a note to him, the mother, and the mother opens the check. Don't send this boy to my school from tomorrow. Then the mother closely shuts the check and then says the son that the ma'am has written that you are the best student in the class and you don't have to really go to school from tomorrow. And
yeah, I remember that one. It's a good one.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That was a nice thing. And what can we conclude? Was he trying to bring a change? Was he trying to do a research? Was he which frame we can put? You call him a think tank, you call him a validator, you call him a verifier, you call him an engineer. He is how many Edisons are there in India, for example? Let's look at our own context. So being a developing country, we don't have any. We don't have any. There are think tanks, I'm proud to say. Again, I envy Rajshekhar. So ISRO. So somehow, many institutions, I'm very much fascinated with the work that ISRO has been doing, is doing, and probably I'm sure they continue to do, and then they are going to be the icon of space research globally. That's what is my opinion. Okay, so not because I've witnessed Mission Mangal or anything, but even otherwise, a lot of documentaries, a lot of blogs, and a lot of connect. So that's what is given, right? So in the end, the conclusion that I'm trying to make here is, so research has to be a little bit separate, number one, and secondly, there is a chain, right? So you position yourself in the chain depending on finance, depending on investment that you can make. Either you want to hire some think tanks and then put in your corporates to do the change, get the solution, right? So that's up to the budget that we have, or you want to get the parts from somewhere and then validate your hypothesis. You want to hire some researchers and then drive the change. Up to you, up to the organizations. I mean, so you don't want to hire researcher, no funding. You want to hire some architects who probably would get some researchers, probably connect with some academics locally, outside the country, anywhere for that matter, and do it. Or you don't even do that. Typical of our IT sector, do that. So on the verified hypothesis, you want to do that. So where you want to position it in this closed chain is driven by many other things which are out of discussion at this point on time, but predominantly is a cost-driven stuff.
Thank you very much, Naga sir. So just for a quick time check, in the interest of time, I would like, everyone, the panel members also to pull in their points.
Give me less than 1 minute.
Sure,
less
sure.
than 1 minute. Yeah. So just a cut paste from internet. So we have not heard any one of these guys, and they are listed the top 50 scientists in the world. At least none of them seem, except very few of them, none of them are familiar to me. So this is what is research where there is an investment that people have been doing, right? And yeah, I put some colors there to really find out the drivers. In conclusion, there's a problem that drives the change, right? Research is a multifaceted personality, right? Research is not driven by anything, but it is, on the other hand, it is the other way around. It is going to drive innovations, it is going to drive technology, it is going to drive through technology a solution, it is going to drive the change, right? Not directly, right? Engineer receives the technology, engineer uses the technology to make changes. Developing countries use problems to drive change. Developed countries uses research to drive change, right? So finally, it depends on what we are and where you want to go. You're a developed nation, or you want to remain a developing nation for some more time. So why nation in the context of industry? The corporates who are going to make any country transit from a developing nation to a developing nation. There is always some other, the monetary stuff separate, but their existence itself in a country is going to really decide whether a country is a developing country or a developed country, right? That's what I have at this point in time. Thank you.
I would like to add a few points to what Dr. Nagbhushan said. Can I?
Yes, please.
Sure,
Yes, please.
sure, sir.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Nagbhushan, for putting a very nice framework of defining what research and what change is. In fact, when I was looking at it, it just appeared to me most of the factors which influence or where the change originates are all external factors, either whether it's availability or cost or constraint or any other resources, anything. Whereas when it comes to research, it has to work, no doubt it has to work under a boundary or the framework of what is available. But most of the time, what I have discovered, or at least I have experienced, is research is, basically motivate. It's a motivation. It is a passion. It is originated from the passion of the set of people who are very, deeply engrossed, and they just want to find out something which is new or which makes a lot of impact. So this is more of an internal factor. So actually a right amalgamation of the external factors which influence the change or where the change originates, and a lot of internal factors where the research originates, is the right combination for a progressive nation. I just want to quote two examples. One is, for example, as I already said earlier, the COVID situation. Nobody in the entire universe really, even imagined that we would land up in such a situation. And we landed up in such a situation. And it is a great, what do you call it? It's a very, very demanding situation. Now there is a change which has happened in the world, which is driving the entire universe or the entire world now. Now here is a situation where change is very strongly driving the research. So, if we had to do a right research, and if we really have to come out with the right answer for some of the challenges that we are facing in a COVID situation, I mean, it's very easy to understand or even imagine that if we don't have right researchers, if we don't have people with right passion who are doing the right research in a given amount of time, it's virtually impossible to find solution for any of the challenges that we are doing today. So, whereas a change has driven the research, whereas again, if you come from an internal factor, without somebody having a passion to really find the solution for such a challenging situation, it is impossible to find a given solution for a given problem. I mean, as we have a famous example, if you lock four engineers or four people in a room and give them 1 year's time, and you tell them you have to research this in 1 year's time, do we really expect them to do a research and come out with a solution?
Yeah.
Perhaps not. If they don't have the passion for doing the research, even if you give them all the resources and you lock them in a room and you give them 1 year's time, they're not going to do any research. They're not really going to come out with any solution. So I think I just want to link it to what I said earlier. Research and change are both, even though they are originating from different sources, they should complement each other and finally work for the vision and goal of a progressive nation. So that is what is ultimately important. And again, we can quote several examples. For example, take the Google search itself. Did anybody really put pressure on Google to find a search engine?
It was more like their passion, and they just made their own.
Because of the passion of the founders. And look at how it impacted the entire society and the life. For anything and everything nowadays, we go to Google, correct? Whereas when it was researched or when it was innovated, there was no demand, there was no change. There was nobody asking Google to do a search engine. So ultimately, I just come to the same point which I said earlier. Both of them are extremely important. Both of them should complement each other. They should drive each other in a way that it really helps a nation to progress forward. So that's what is ultimately very important. I think, but
I would like to
add
add
a very nice framework given by Bhushan, sir.
So I would just like to add a small point to that and then also give it over. There was a really good point I wanted to highlight in that the complementary part where the change and the research complementing each other. And coming to that Google point with that passion, what they've done is, rather than waiting for change to come, they searched for that change. They tried to find what is that new change. So I think that is like a highlighting factor to how the country is actually developing. If you want a nation to progress, rather than waiting for that change to come to you, whereas in this COVID situation, that change came to us, the whole world. It's not like we were getting ready for anything. That change came to us and then we started to do something. But in this Google aspect and all the other cases, 4G, 5G, in networking and all the other industries, there are some places where we search the next change. What is the next big change? And when we are researching towards that, that is making some countries to develop more further than the other countries. So that's one point I would like to add to Rajshekar's one. Yeah, over to Bala sir and Karthik.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rajshekhar. Actually, you put it the Google search engine. But I feel that from my perspective, Google has taken a maybe step from the encyclopedia. They try to modernize the encyclopedia concept into a Google search engine, where whatever we wanted to search, we should be able to get in the encyclopedia. That was our earlier concept. They wanted to make it available online. So that probably the motivation or the inspiration for the Google search engine, or for that matter, any other search engine, they might have got it from this kind of a resource. Yeah, quickly, I just wanted to make 2 points. One is the research drives the change. For example, it's a originality in thinking. People, they wanted to understand and learn how the system works. Either it could be Edison, Newton, or Albert Einstein. They wanted to study without any expectation. They were not thinking of developing a product, developing a solution. No, they wanted to understand how the system works. So either it's a Newton or a Albert Einstein or a Niels Bohr, constantly they were trying to understand how the system, how the nature works, and what is the theory behind it. They were trying to understand. So it's a internal process, as Dr. Rajshekhar has pointed out. Whereas the change drives the research, we find that most of the things have been demanded by the limitation or the constraints that has been posed by the different agents. It could be, most of the times, it's maybe external environmental agents. For example, we have got a space constraint. Now we were thinking of going for a multi-level parking system. So the space constraint is forcing us to think of a solution wherein we want to park n number of cars or n square of parking slots available in a small space. So we constantly try to evolve ourselves based on the constraints or the limitation that has been enforced at the different point of time, which are all external factors. So I feel as a good researcher, we need to have both the internal, which is having a long-standing effect, and the external, which will be having a time-bound effect, which may not be optimal. I may use a word called heuristic in nature. It may give a solution, but it may not be a global optimal solution on a long-term perspective. For example, the COVID vaccines, what we have created now, certainly it has solved the problem right now. But after 3 years or 5 years, you may find that, no, this is not the optimal solution. Probably would have got a better solution. But at this particular point of time, we think that this is the optimal solution, what we got, or based on the time availability, this is the best solution, what we are thinking. But it may not be a global solution for a long-term perspective because it's a time-bound solution. But what I feel that thinking of a classical computing or a classical mechanical environment to a quantum computer environment, it's a leap of research or the change in the context that has happened from the classical physics to a quantum physics environment, which no one was accepting at that time. So that was a very big leap, which was having a long-standing impact. That's all my observation. Over to you back, sir. Thank you.
Karthik sir, your points?
Actually, what ultimate nail is, so for the progressive nation, which would which model would suit better? So that part I'm still pondering upon. So if you have if you don't have expectations, then as Dr. Balachandran sir mentioned, that they did not have any expectations like great researchers. So, but that impacted the whole world. So that I think that would be positive. I mean, I'm not sure whether that environment it would be available in the developing countries where you don't expect any thing from the researchers, but ultimately the wonders would happen with that researchers. Yeah. So I don't know how. Actually, the main thing is environment also is a factor. I'm going back to the Srinivasa Ramanujan case. So in that era, the India was still developing, and then we did not have enough encouragement. I am not sure whether it's the right word, but yeah, we did not have much infrastructure for that research. So he had to go back to England, but now it's a different story now. India, the rate of progress, it's like exponential. So I'm just thinking in developed and developing countries, the environment which motivates the researcher, that also plays a factor in driving the research or research driving the change.
Not just the environment, there are many other points that even Naga sir was mentioning, political and technology. So all of that adds into it.
Hey, Joseph, I have one thing to make in terms of the COVID. Rajshekar pointed out very nicely. I'm getting a feeling that's one of the very stray cases where a need of change has driven research. But nevertheless, the way we should look at is, let's look at a bit of details. You take the case of Pfizer, Moderna, or ICMR, or a few other variants that we have. Less than a year, they could come out with a vaccine because how many years they have spent, ICMR scientists, they have spent without doing any job. So, they get furious if they hear to that. Apparently, it looks like that. But the government has really spent money on them to be conducting research without any expectation. We all agree with that.
And then Pfizer comes in and then, okay, we release the first vaccine and then that's it. Everyone else is like, okay, now we're set.
Yeah. No. For example, you take totally off the box. WHO statements, if you really see with respect to COVID, it looks like guys would have collected some statement from news channel and then given. But they say, okay, it's rising. Okay, WHO, somebody comes and says it is rising, right? So the research has to be nurtured in any organization. So, which many of us said that there is an investment that is required to nurture the research. So initially, sometime or on a continued basis, the research has to happen without any expectation. And again, lastly, I'm completely with Rajshekar. Research comes only out of passion. So
exactly, out of passion, when you do passionate research, you get better results.
Exactly. Put a bunch of girls in a bunch of people in a room and then ask them to conduct research. They will be miserable. They won't be able to do anything.
Technically, that's what happened for the COVID. They pushed everyone into a room, like, find the vaccine.
Yeah, but there probably were some good minds there who could come out with COVID, Covaxin, Pfizer, and many things which worked to some extent and some efficiency and all that stuff. But again, pandemics is a very, very stray case, once in 100 years type of situation. So that is not a everyday thing to really benchmark any decisions any corporate would make. But nevertheless, what we should agree is there has to be some investment in terms of research without any strings attached to it in terms of expectation.
So, on the interest of time, I think there's Saharsh and also Namrata was mentioning this. So, if each person will give a short, sweet summary and on to which set they're also supporting, research drives change or change drives research. So, yeah, let's start with Dr. Balachandran, sir. So, can you just give a short summary of?
Yes, sir. What I feel is, for a short-term gain or a short-term solution, the change drives the research. But on a long-term perspective, on an overall perspective, I feel research changes this one. So that's my personal view. So,
yeah, great, Raj, sir.
I would love to ask one cross question here. What do you think, since you mentioned a short-term and a long-term goal, as in an academic institution, where should be the basics and the foundation should be built for it? Should we look forward to the changes and accordingly mold the institutional values and ethics? Or vice versa?
Yeah,
we should look the industry standards and then, since you come from an academic.
Yeah, basically I come, Saharsh, you are asking me or?
Yes,
yeah, he's asking you for academics.
Okay. Saharsh, actually, of course, I worked both in the R&D sector before coming to the academics. There, actually, the situation or the time demands the kind of a solution. Say, for example, we were having a uranium reserves and we are having a uranium reactors, but the uranium reserves in India were very, very small. So, whereas we had a huge thorium reserves in India, but we couldn't use it for the fusion reactors because we didn't have a technology. And the other way around, on all over the other world, it's the other way around. They had a huge uranium reserve and less thorium reserve. So no one was concentrating on researching on the thorium, whereas we were concentrating more on the thorium reserves. That's the reason we find that PWR reactors, BGN generated fast breeder reactors, where other countries, they were going in very slow. So the situation and the necessity has actually necessitated us to look for that kind of a solution. So when we normally go to the curriculum also, the same thing happens. Now, there are some things which we have to adapt fast and we have to incorporate in our curriculum, because there should not be a gap between the academia and the outside industry expectations. So constantly our academic has to be in updated, modified, and has to be in tune with the industry standards without losing the focus on the basics. So basics have to be very, very strong. Then only we can build on the additional values to it. That's all my submission.
Thank you very much, sir. Let's move to the next person, and I will invite Karthik, sir. What will be his final comments?
Yeah. So I think for the progressive nation, I think the model it would be both going hand in hand, like research driving the change driving the research. But ultimately, the change driving the research would follow first. I mean, it would come first, and then all the strategy. I mean, both going hand in hand. Yeah, but if you ask me as a passion, like, so in that change driving research and like coming in that that come first, the change driving research. So there the passion would solely is a monetary passion. I mean, so there I don't know how like how it would impact. Yeah, so that is my final call.
Okay, so sir, seeing your industry background, I have another query, because you come from a radar system engineering perspective, and you have been working in this particular role from decades. What is your perspective in this particular domain itself, sir? That are you more focused on futuristic technologies, is more investment? Because there was an investment issue as well being brought up by Rajashekaran sir and supported by Nagabhushan sir. What is your perspective from that particular industry where you come, that how financials and how a gestation period is keeping in mind that, okay, maybe this product is more supportive for 5 years later generations, what we are creating, but then this is something necessity and we should work on its research. What are your perspective on that particular role, sir?
Yeah, so in that case, so that is a short term, right? Short term thing which you are mentioning about. So the short term thing, as Dr. Balachandran said, like contrary to what I said in the previous discussion, I mean previous discussion. So there, in the short term, I think that model would suit better. The change driving the research and getting insights and finally coming up with the research problem. And so there, I think the factors affecting each other would well be I mean, for that model, the mathematical framework is a backbone for that. So many times in our industry, there will be some tasks, research problems to, I mean, there will be end goals, but we need to come up with suitable models for that. So many times we would not, like, we would fail, but ultimately that would impact the business as well. So there are more risks involved in the change driven research. So sometimes we fail, so that would affect the business a lot. So yeah, so that is what I feel in the industry.
I will definitely take that advice right now, sir. And I can actually relate how the mobile industry, when the first smartphone came and how it disrupted many big players in the industry who couldn't cope up with their R&D centers, had to lose it. So definitely that is very true insight, sir. Let's move to Nagabhushan, sir, and hear his insights now. What will be your concluding remarks, sir, on should research drive the change or should change drive the research?
Things. See, I'm at the outset. I'm completely with Dr. Ramchandran.
Balachandran.
So, Dr. Balachandran, short-term gains, requirement of a change should drive research, and long-term, so research should drive the change. That is one part. Second, if change has to drive research, let's take the short-term requirement. If change has to drive research, the research should exist in some form. Research is a very sluggish process. A number of times we agree that people can't do research overnight. That is the reason we try to nurture a bunch of researchers in any organizations. So that being the case, research in terms of investment has to be present in some form. This is one of my opinion. Second is struggle for existence. If corporates has to exist these days, there has to be a research component. There is a, see, if startups start concluding that research is not getting me my food for tomorrow, then the corporates would, the startups would end up with no food. So, because if we are not bringing change, somebody else is bringing change. No, it is not stopping. So that being the case, it is a pressure on even the startups to really innovate, do some investment, and then digest the fact that research has to be an integral part, right? So the three conclusion is short-term problems are the change should drive research, long-term research should drive the change, and second point, there has to be an investment for conducting research because research is a sluggish system, it is not spontaneous, and if somebody is not working, somebody else will work, and then it will come. See, there's one more thing I keep telling, I'll stop at this. Now, telecom sector, for example, if you take very long ago, when I think Nambiar or somebody was chairing ITI, ITI was under the impression that I am the leader. So India, wherever exchanges are required, I have to come to Indian telephone industry, ITI, I am the public sector and all that stuff, right? Manmohan Singh got the liberalization policy. So ITI closed their shutters, being one of the leading public sector. It has happened in telecom. When KTL came, Karnataka Telecom, and a lot of other that CDOT exchanges came, right? So again, that was sculpted by Sam Pitroda and the then Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi. They brought in a lot of change. So now, again, unfortunately, about 30 to 40 licensees of the CDOT technology, many of them did not come up to the level. Right? They wanted them not to do technology because the government said they will do research through CDOT to take the technology and produce exchanges. Unfortunately, we were not in that time frame, many of them. So, yet another thing, one last thing, I will not take any more time, it is again contextual, because to take the investments have to be different. You need to position yourself properly. Somebody made a mention of that. I was trying to relate that with yet another industry. Like, for example, you take the solar energy harnessing for our purpose. Why would Europe do any research in that? Why would America do any research in that? Because they are all cold countries. You can't expect Australia to conduct research on solar unless they want to attack India being a tropical, all tropical country. So contextually, you set a research frame which is very flimsy, right? And then within that frame, let the research get nurtured. And you pick up whatever technology comes up as their outcome, and then use that on a short term, the accomplishments that the industry wants. So that is my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagbhushan. Let's move to Mr. Rajashekharan. who's bringing industry expertise and marketing and all other various kind of knowledges all together. So, sir, what will be your concluding remarks here?
Yeah, I think before sharing my final conclusion, I would just like to quote one funny example from my corporate world with respect to the research and passion, how they are related. So I was working in a corporate sector and we were all doing the regular development and maintenance job. Everybody in the team was fed up and they said, no, it's all routine job. We want to do some, so spend some time on research, and why don't you give some time and things like that. So we all discussed with our MD and we agreed that, okay, let us give Friday half day for everybody to do what they want, what they are passionate about, and let them do the research. So we all implemented and we said that, okay, in every team, Friday afternoon is free for all the team members. You can go and do research. You can find out whatever. I mean, you can engage yourself in whatever you want. And then finally, after a couple of months, we looked at what is the result, and it was a big 0. Because nobody really had the passion and interest in doing research. They simply wanted a break from their routine job. And this is how, the research should not happen. A classic example of how research should not happen. But anyway, nevertheless, coming back to my own perspective, I completely agree with Dr. Balchandar on a long-term, it is research which should drive the change, and in a short term, of course, depending upon the need, it's a change which should drive the research. But just in the context of a progressive nation, which I think where India falls into, I think that we should not blindly bind ourselves to any one formula at this moment of time. We should rather be open and then focus on a given vision and an end goal, and take things as necessary and as, what the case may be. Basically, at this point of time, I feel that as a progressive nation, India should focus on having a complementary system where change drives research and research drives change based on the need and based on whatever the context and the case may be. That's my final thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekhar. Let's move to amazing, who also helped us in moderation because of some technical issues. Namrata ma'am could help. So what will be your final concluding remarks, sir? That
Don't
should
worry,
research drive the change?
I have experience in moderating groups as well, so it's part of my stuff. So yeah, coming to that point, I would just like to summarize on
Thank you very
everyone's.
much, sir.
Yeah, so to
was
summarize
lovely
on
to
everyone's points together, basically to come to Karthik's point where the change started and then research started, and then moving on to Balas's point where it is a kind of an unsupervised method where there's a change, research. That happens naturally, but in order to become a progressing nation, like how Rajshekhar sir and Naga sir was also mentioning, when there is a change that goes into a research, we should not let the, like I already mentioned before, we should not let the change come to you. You should find that change. That way you could be ahead of the competition. I'm saying competition in the case because I've seen industry and academics, but in both cases, I'm going to cut away market space for now, just to focus on the progressing part. So when change is affecting research, you should find the change. When research is affecting change, there's also the case where Naga said research drives research. So that's also a case. And when research is driving research, it should be a passionate research. And if it's passionate, that research will then go to the next change. So in these 2 points, when change is driving, we find the change. And when research is driving, we do passionate research. These 2 main points I would like to quote from the 2 professors. This will be a very key point for a progressing nation. So in that, I would like to conclude.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph Isaac. Namrata ma'am, if we can hear some final concluding remarks from you as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now you are
Samyash?
perfectly audible. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I would like to, just take 1 or 2 minutes. That was a very interesting point, what I would try to add on, which all of them mentioned, the passion-driven research. So as sir was mentioning, that half-day leave and all of those things, That's quite an interesting thing. So I would just take 1 minute to share one of my, experience. So when we currently started with one of an industry project on blockchain, what happened was then the same way some of them got associated, and we thought, we could work on some problem statement, and all of them said like, Sunday would be a good day for everything and all of that. And later they said, the system will not accept this application kinds of things. No one would take the blockchain application, and it will not be useful kind of a thing. So that passion driven research is the one thing. So I would just ask one thing to all the panelists. If any one of you wants to add on, how possibly you could, is there anything what you would try to put as a concluding remarks, as a motivating thing for young researchers?
That was very helpful, ma'am. Thank you. We can start it from Joseph, sir. So,
and also, I think, Saharsh, we have also one question from Omkar.
Yes, sure.
That was
Yes.
the question
Yeah,
I was actually typing an answer for. So since it's came to me, I might as well answer it directly. So basically, the question implies is that they want to research on climate change, but there's academic needs, and that is stopping him. So in short, there is no barrier. If you want to research on absolutely anything, there is no barrier to stop anybody. See, like someone who has been in computer science his whole life can even drop everything and go to biology. Someone who's in biology can drop everything and go to agriculture. It's totally up to you. That is where passion lies. Like Rajshekhar was saying all the time, if you're passionate, you will do it. So that is the key part in it. And even for my case, I've been a computer scientist, and now I was actually having biology grade papers now. I was doing papers on healthcare. I was doing papers on surgery. But I've never even touched a person before. I've never even did anything about biology related. So, but it's more passionate. So I felt like, okay, let's do something on healthcare, and then it ended up. So to answer your question, and to answer everyone else's, if you want to research on something, if you want to try something, if you are passionate, it will surely be there. And if you're aiming at something, go for the current trends, which is being hyped on the market right now. VR, it's in a current buzzword, big data, and in agriculture, there should be something related to that. So I'm not aware of it. But if you're aiming at the big thing, and if you're passionate about what you're doing, you will excel in it. So that will be my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for such motivating remarks. I would also love to share something, if panelists will allow me to.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So before starting Checked It, I was never ever interested into biology, to be honest. From the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th as well, I just dropped. Biology is something was not my cup of tea, and I accepted that at that early stage itself. However, when I entered into the engineering, this is how it has actually turned completely my passion around. And then I actually involved into the medical devices, being a computer science engineer. I didn't know anything about electronics. I didn't know anything about optical fibers, nothing. But then I just captured the problem that, yeah, this is the problem and where I need to work on to. That is how we started working in healthcare, and now Checked It is one of the, now we are collaborating with Government of India for lot many healthcare diagnosis problems, as Checked It as whole is emerging into that. And that came from that particular vision that yes, we can do this, and then let's try this, because this is a problem we need to solve. We will learn whatever comes in the way. We will try to pass all the hurdles in the way.
As I said, passionate. Passionate is the main thing.
Correct. So definitely there has to be an internal motivation, because if you're thinking that someone from outside will come and push you every day, that okay, wake up and let's do the research, or let's find a solution to this particular problem, I don't think that is self-sustainable model. There has to be something from inside. There has to be a driving force from inside to come for creating a change, and for creating a research which can drive a change. So with this, I will move to Rajshekhar sir on the remarks what Nandita ma'am has opened us for. What will be your motivating remarks to the young researchers, Namrata ma'am?
Oh, okay. You are expecting me to say something. I think, with respect to the earlier question, one of the person has put on the chat and Mr. Joseph Isaac said, basically, if you have passion to do some research, all the external constraints really doesn't matter. I quoted the example from my corporate life. When people were demanding time and we gave time and resources and now you do research, they basically ended up doing nothing. So it's a contra example. But just to put in perspective, I would say for young researchers, for engineering students and people who are in various fields, not just engineering, I think various fields of studies, youngsters are really the real power of our nation. Because when you are young, your mind is really working in a very efficient way. You are really you are capable of spending your time and energy in a very optimized way. I think this is the time when youngsters should make use of their potential very well. And because once you pass this stage, you probably enter into some routine job and things like that. It becomes very difficult. And as you get into the different phases of life, you will have different other challenges. It may be very difficult for you to really focus on the first few years of your study or while you are studying. And when you just jump into your passionate work, that is where your contribution should be extremely high. And just be aware of that. Don't lose that time. It's extremely important during your education time, during your, the professional studies, and just after studies, few years of your professional life, you must spend your time and energy really finding something which really impacts the society in a big way. You will not only be internally be very happy about yourself, but you will also be making a lot of people happy about what you have done. So I think that's my word to youngsters. I would rather really strongly believe, because I've seen a lot of people from different age groups, people whom I have recruited right away from the college when I was in corporate sector. Those were the people who were actually bubbling with energy. They wanted to do something. See, it's actually the managers who don't feed right amount of and right kind of work to them, and then let their potential go loose. So I would rather bet upon this young energy. And not only you should have a very high focus on doing something which is very passionate for yourself and helps the society, and you should find the right environment for doing it and go on demand. I think none of your academic guides and your mentors, your principals, your HODs would deny if you really want to do something. See, it really depends on how you put it. At the end of the day, only crying baby gets the milk. So you should go and cry in a right way. That's my word.
Definitely. Thank you very much, sir. Karthik, sir, your final remarks.
So for the youth, I would say that you need don't get into the competition, competing with others. So what they are doing. So just take some time to find out what is your real passion, and then it would sustain for a short, if you compete with others, it would sustain for short term, but at the long term perspective, it would never sustain. So competing with ourselves and try to be the best version of ourselves, that should be the main motive for the youths. That's what I feel.
Thank you very much, Karthik sir. Balachandran sir, your final motivational remarks, because I know you are a core believer of research, as well as all the conventional things also should not be disrupted in the same end.
Yeah.
As I can see the chat box as well, and I was extremely happy about your answer that even assignment itself, it can be a good point for you to start up the research and all. So your final motivational remarks for the young researchers.
Yeah, thank you, Sahaj. One is a self-satisfaction and self-motivation, and unraveling the truth and understanding the things better. That normally motivates the people to do better. It's an internal thing. generally, of course, most of the times we expect somebody else to appreciate our work. Somebody has to give the reward. Somebody has to maybe praise us. That's what the expectation. But the same thing, if you get it internalized, I think that's a very, very big achievement. By doing something extra, by doing something innovative, by getting something new, if you get a self-motivation, then that's the best thing that one can aim for. So that's all my concluding remarks. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you very much, sir. I hope indeed it will be definitely helping to each and every attendees and also the viewers who are watching us live from the YouTube. So thank you very much to each and every, all the panelists, and also our wonderful moderator, maybe because right? So maybe with that positive energy, I would love to thank each and every panelist for such an enriching and intense session. We have surely been enlightened, and I'm sure that the audience is going to take home a lot of knowledge, analogies, and anyone from the audience, they have already asked the queries. So I will quickly move to the vote of thanks so that we can start the next session on time. We have a person from France Embassy, Government of France Embassy, to enlighten us on the basics of neuroscience. So I will move to the next segment of this particular session, and that is vote of thanks, because I myself and my whole organizing team is filled with gratitude for all of your presence today. And I would like to thank each and every panelist and moderator for the session for taking out time and agreeing to be our speakers for the consortium and delivering such a great session. Immense and extensive experience what you have shared would definitely be helping us. My extremely thanks to each and every one. And I will request my team to kindly share their screen to our esteemed panelists and our moderator for today. So can we please share the screen and present our mementos? Professor Namrata, thank you very much for being an amazing moderator. In spite of glitches and internet issues, you did try your best. Thank you very much. Dr. Balachandran K. What an amazing insights what you have brought, analogies from data science, analogies from your personal experiences in the research domain, nuclear research, what you did, and an amazing cooperation and thoughts, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Karthik Vasudev, thank you very much for your amazing insights and bringing it from industry. Thank you.
Coordinator, thanks.
Achyut, can we move to the next certificate? Achyut, I would also like to thank Dr. Nagabhushana sir and Dr. Rajshekhar MS sir for their valuable insights and amazing contribution towards this particular panel discussion, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, Dr. Rajshekhar MS, please accept our heartfelt gratitude, and Dr. BS Nagabhushana, sir, please accept our heartfelt gratitude, and Mr. Joseph S. Char Isaac. Amazingly, I'm more thankful for you to be an amazing panelist to actually spark that particular insight in the young researchers and young people who are watching your session. Thank you very much.
To be a student representative in this group, along with these great big minds. One little student is there.
And now onwards, we will be in connection with you as well for more and more help from your end. And what an energy, sir. I really loved your energy, your particular perspective towards how we should look forward to the research. So
thank you.
I'm thanking to each and everyone. And in the end, I would love to thank two of our most important people. And these are none other than Dr. Rajeshwari Hegde and Dr. Susan Elias for mentoring us throughout in our journey. Thank you very much, ma'am. And thank you very much to the sponsors, collaborators, and organizers. Stay tuned for the another session. And within 2 minutes, we will be starting our next session from a person, Dr. Stanislas Lejugi. He's joining us from France directly, and he's in person in embassy in Government of France. So stay tuned with the basics of neuroscience. He will be teaching us now. And his core quotes on the particular sessions are, you should learn the basics of neuroscience, otherwise someone will do better than you in the journey. So with these remarks, we will be welcoming sir in 2 minutes. Meanwhile, guys, feel free to fill the feedback form. And thank you once again for each and every panelist, moderator. Thank you for your valuable time and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very
See you.
much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Stanislas, sir, we will be starting in a few minutes.
Okay.
Let me end this particular session and we may move to the next.
Okay. In the meantime, you may grant me sharing screen rights.
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.